All right, I'm laboring under the impression that we are live here. So welcome back to Evening Skews, everybody. Trey Crowder here with Mark Agee and a little mashup we had going there. What was that, Mark? Nappy Roots?
Yeah, Nappy Roots mashed the cover of Dixieland Delight, and I always dug it.
Yeah.
Try a little musical intros here for that dead air with that 3-minute period where we're not sure whether we're on Facebook or not.
I'm still trying to find the damn actual page right now. It's so ridiculous that it is this difficult to do this. But just so y'all watching know, every time we actually go live, I have to then go and find the actual video on the page. It doesn't take me directly to it. So I'm sorry that I open every show like an idiot, but I'm just, I'm trying to get better. But we're here now. We all got it queued up now. And Mark, tonight we're starting with a fun little video. Let me get it shared here. I don't know, who couldn't enjoy this? Let's see, share the sound too. Here we go.
I said to Ronnie Jackson, I said, is there some kind of a test, an acuity test? And he said there actually is, and he named it, whatever it might be. And it was 30 or 35 questions. The first questions are very easy. The last questions are much more difficult, like a memory question. It's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman, man, camera, TV. Okay, that's very good. If you get it in order, you get extra points. Okay, now he's asking you other questions, and then 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes later, they say, remember the first question? Not the first, but the 10th question? Give us that again. Can you do that again? And you go person, woman, man, camera, TV. If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Extra points, Mark? Who doesn't like extra points?
The extra points thing is so funny because, like, whether or not you have dementia is sort of pass-fail, right?
Right. Yes, right. And that's the so if everybody doesn't know, a lot to unpack here. Obviously, Trump's very proud of himself, proud of the score he got on a test that he had taken. And that test is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Exam, which is a screening test intended to assess cognitive impairment or early dementia. It's not an IQ test. It's not an aptitude test. It's meant only to determine whether or not you have the basic minimum cognitive requirements to be a competent adult. So any positive score on this test is not indicative of supreme, stable, genius intelligence, but just rather that your brain isn't literally rotting. But Trump has bragged publicly on multiple occasions now, at least 3 times publicly, about just how much he knocked this test out of the waters. He scored a perfect 30 out of 30, and according to him, everyone present told him that's very rare. It's a very rare person who can score a 30 out of 30 on this test, but that is not true. The opposite result would be much more rare.
I mean, I'll give him a little bit of credit. I went and looked at the test, and my first thought was some of these would take me a minute. Like, draw a clock where it's 10 minutes after 11. That might take. I don't know. I might miss that one. I had to think about that one for a minute because I haven't looked at an analog clock in so long. I don't know. Maybe
Right.
maybe I need to turn in my driver's license. There. But the whole thing is so funny. I always wonder what like normal people think Trump's talking about because the whole thing started. People online make fun of him for having dementia, and he sees it, gets mad about it, and goes out and says, "I do not have dementia." And so everyone who's not spending all day reading Twitter doesn't even know what he's talking about, except here's a man randomly proclaiming he doesn't have dementia. But like he self-owned into this because he talked about it so much that reporters started writing stories seriously questioning his mental health because he's doing it backwards. If you don't take a dementia test because people aren't worried you have dementia. So he introduced it into the conversation It's
exactly. That's the whole thing. The fact that like even taking this specific test at all in the first place is not something that I feel like most politicians would openly brag about, but he cannot help but openly brag about everything, this included. He had an interview with Fox News's Chris Wallace. That's what that was from. And Chris Wallace had also taken the test, and he said in the interview, Chris Wallace said, "Let's be honest, it's not the hardest test." And Trump responded, well, yeah, the first few questions are easy, sure, but I bet you couldn't even answer the last 5 questions. It gets much more difficult. They get very hard the last 5 questions. Some of those last 5 questions that he's referring to include naming the time and place that you are in, as well as repeating a series of words you were asked to remember earlier, which is what he was talking about. And according to Chris Wallace, one of them was identify this picture, and it's an elephant. So, it's not trigonometry, advanced calculus. It's
even his example of the 5 words was so funny because he listed things he was looking at.
Right? Yes, it's like Brick from Anchorman. I love lamp. Trump is the I love lamp president. But yeah, he's like, it could be anything. It could be anything. Let's just say like it's a computer, sun, mirror, door, camera, that type of thing.
Yeah, person, woman, man, camera, TV, where things are all right in front of his face. And the I don't know, the whole. I love the reporters during all this stuff because like he's doing it again because when he talked about it on Sunday, which was totally unnecessary, that went viral because it looked bad because he was like the questions are so hard, and Chris Wallace goes, it asks you to count backwards from 100 by sevens. And he goes, well, you couldn't do it. And Chris Wallace goes, 93.
93.
Like,
yeah, right.
It's like he just subtracted 7. And it made it look dumb. And then went viral. So he comes back out again and goes, no, the test is actually really, really hard. And then the reporter has to stand there. They kept cutting back to the reporter, trying to look supportive and not concerned and also not amused. But he's all 3. And the whole thing's silly.
Yes, the whole thing is silly. Another minor part of it is he is now, for some reason, maybe his brain is the reason, started saying that he took it recently. I guess because he thinks that people can't try to have a gotcha moment where they're like, oh, yeah, but you took that test 2 years ago, so maybe you should take it again. Because now he started saying that it was definitely within the last year, while also saying it was administered by Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who hasn't been in that position since 2018 when he actually took the test. So it's like he's like incapable of not lying and being wrong about at least something at all moments in time, right? Like he just can't help it.
He's trying to challenge Joe Biden to to I guess to take the test at the same time side by side and compare test results, which is like so bleak, man.
Yeah,
so
I know,
bleak.
right? Exactly. That's what I was about to say. Like, man, what a horrific scenario to envision just as an American, our 2 presidential and it's not like this is a setup thing that's happening or anything, but just this is what Trump wants to happen. The idea of our 2 presidential candidates squaring off in a public dementia test is just, well, that's 2020 in a nutshell right there. But again, it's not like Biden doing this or anything. It's just all the shit that Trump is talking.
Yeah, and like Biden or whoever writes his tweets, essentially, if you read the subtext, their response to this was like, it's not about whether I have dementia, bro. it's about 140,000 people dead and everybody losing their jobs, which is the subtext of that is like, it doesn't matter if I have dementia because I'm a figurehead for a bunch of competent middle managers. So, yeah.
Right. And like you said, what matters is all the people sick, dying, and everybody losing their jobs. But try explaining that to not just Trump, but also the GOP Congress, because not moving any faster on that new recovery plan and don't seem overly concerned about it. Here's a tweet from Manu Raju that says, GOP senators did not talk about their recovery plan at lunch, but did discuss the eccentric menu that John Kennedy put together. Kennedy said they had alligator sausage, bell peppers stuffed with beef and shrimp, and crab bisque. Quote, it's very tasty, and it will make you regular. That's nice to know.
Yeah, you know what's not going to be regular? Rent.
It's just it's such a like, I don't things like this always blow my mind because it's like I don't expect better from them. I really don't, like, as people, but I'm always kind of shocked at the lack of like awareness when it comes to how something will play in the public sphere. Like, you're a public figure and have been for years. How do you not know any better than to just openly engage in a moment like this? It's such a Marie Antoinette let them eat cake thing, which before anybody says, I know that's a myth. She didn't actually say that. That has been made clear to me. But in principle, that sort of, it's the same kind of idea, you know, let them eat alligator sausage is what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, like, their proposals are like, they did turn down Trump's idea that all he wanted to do was a payroll tax, which really only helps people who are currently working, and only a little bit payroll tax cut. But they're talking about cutting the $600 a week to $400 a month. So I don't think they have any idea what things cost. There's like a real downside to having your entire government run by 75-year-old millionaires.
Right. Absolutely. But no, I refuse to give them credit for almost anything. But I did find this very weird. They did accomplish something. They don't only eat alligator sausage and talk shit. Apparently, they passed a big defense spending bill, which of course they did. It's the only bills that can ever get passed. But this one's a little different because this defense spending bill has a nice little nugget written into it by Elizabeth Warren, which requires the measure would kick off a process forcing the Pentagon to scrub names, monuments, and paraphernalia honoring the Confederacy and its leaders from military bases and assets over the next 3 years. So it's your standard defense spending bill with the budget and all that, but it includes an earmark that requires the Pentagon to go through the process of purging the names of Confederate generals and leaders from bases and all of our, military operations. So, small victories, take them where you could get them, right?
Yeah, and the only reason these bases are named after those dudes in the first place is because the rush to World War II was so fast, they needed local support to get defense spending bills passed, to get the bases built quickly. And Republicans at the time were slightly more hesitant to go to war than Democrats because they had the Charles Lindbergh America First branch, which is kind of like Hitler, and also just didn't want to spend money in another world war in Europe. And so like putting it in their hometown and naming it after a local luminary such as Braxton Bragg, who not only was a slaver and a Confederate, but also a terrible general who only got his ass kicked. So there's like no reason to name the fort after. I mean, no one even cares what none of the dudes doing basic training there know who Braxton Bragg is.
No, I mean, dude, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I didn't. I got a lot of buddies that joined the military. A lot of them were at Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg's a very prominent military base, and I didn't know until this. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's a military base in North Carolina, but I didn't know who it was named after. I didn't know the backstory. I didn't know it was that asshole. So, like, just name it something else.
One funny part about it to me is it passed at 84-16, I think.
It's 86-14. I was actually just about to ask you about what you think about that, because yes, it didn't just pass; it passed overwhelmingly. It passed in the 86-14 blowout in the Senate, and also this bill, particularly that measure of this bill, had been openly opposed by Donald Trump, right? But it passed with a veto-proof supermajority. So, how much can we read into that, Mark, in your opinion? Like, how much does that mean? He voiced his displeasure with this piece of legislation, and even with the GOP-controlled Senate, it passed by a massive margin. How much does that mean?
I mean, it's not a very popular fight right now to be on the wrong side of, defending those guys and the names of the forts, especially because the Army and the Defense Department's already said they want to change them. And they're going to change them anyway. All the bill would do is remove funding for those bases if they didn't change them. So it's not really going to matter. But politically, like, Trump had threatened to veto it, the whole bill. So they probably just made a veto proof to try to save him from attack ads saying he vetoed a military pay raise in an election year.
Yeah. So I figure it's probably something like that, something a little more just explicitly political, where it's like, it's a defense spending bill overall. We don't need to be, getting locked up over something like this in terms of optics. And if it's going to pass anyway, then it should pass with a veto-proof majority just to keep him from getting us mired down in some bullshit over it. But like, do you think there's any kind of element of them being the GOP in Congress and in power, sort of like mentally moving on from him? Is that wishful thinking? You think do you think they're starting to write him off at all, or giving less of a fuck about, his positions on things or threats he makes or anything like that? Or is it just this bill has its own reasons?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really read too much. You'd think for their own job prospects, they'd want. I mean, obviously they want this fight to go away because they don't want to have it. And also, like we talked about last show, I think, but them not being in any hurry to save the economy seems like they're kind of like telling him to screw off. But a lot of them are up for election too, so I don't really understand what their moves are. It doesn't seem to be based in any sort of reality, which might be a problem.
Right. Yes. But again, the end result is still seemingly a positive thing. Of course, even in this, but this is true with any defense spending budget we ever pass. There's, looking at it from my perspective, still quite a bit of bloat in there. There's go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There was a significant push to try to cut their budget by 10%
by Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and I think they got 30 votes for that.
23 to 77 vote against.
Only 23. That's depressing. I mean, look, we got a military. You give your numbers, and I want to say something after that.
I was just talking about the bloat that is still in this. There's $9.1 billion in the bill to buy 91 Lockheed Martin built F-35 fighters, which is 14 more than were even requested by the Pentagon. And I guarantee you approximately 91 more than we are in desperate need of at this moment. That means there's going to be 91. And I'm ignorant about actual airplanes, but y'all understand what I'm saying here. This means there's going to be 91 F-34 fighters. Again, I know it's not how it works, that are sold off or put in storage or somewhere that are still perfectly operational. And also $21 billion for 7 new warships for the Navy, which is an increase of $1.4 billion from the Navy's request. So even the military branches, which, make opulent budgetary requests in this bill, were given in excess of what they even asked for. So, pretty par for the course.
They love jobs programs, but only when they're run by the Defense Department.
Right.
The F-35 is, you can go read the history of it. It's been in development for 40 years. It's a waste of everybody's time and money. And the whole concept of a joint strike fighter is just because we don't need fighter planes anymore. They turn fighter jets into bombers. And so now we have the B-52s still work perfectly, by the way, but now we got $1 billion stealth fighter jets. They drop one bomb and then fly back. And the whole design of the military, where the Navy has its own army. That's the Marines. The Army has more boats than the Navy. The Army has its own Air Force. So does the Navy have its own Air Force. The Air Force has commandos. So the Air Force has infantry. It's we only need one of these branches, really. I don't know what you're all doing.
I should also say the measure also includes a 3% pay raise for the actual soldiers, for the troops. And, so I'm all about that.
I always wondered why Democrats don't run on an actual people first national defense. If we're going to live in a hellhole where we can only invest money in the Army, you should at least try to steal some of their votes by being we're putting pause on weapons development systems and we're going to invest in people. So new GI Bill, all you guys are getting 40% raises, and we're giving you better base housing, better healthcare, rebuilding the VA, paying for college again, all that kind of stuff, instead of an F-35.
Ace Woods commented, "We can't afford to feed everyone or give everyone health care, but we can waste money on big, expensive toys we won't really be using. What the actual fuck?" And I mean, yes, I agree with that. It's always the thing. It's anytime any kind of welfare program ever gets proposed, they always talk about where's the money going to come from, how are we going to fund this, we don't, but every single time, well, maybe not literally every single time, but in most of those instances, you could fund the entire program in excess with just a fraction of what they, spend on our defense budget every year, which is something like 20 times the next closest country or something like that. But that's always been a complete political non-starter, at least in recent history. So
it's kind of funny, like how Americans have this vague sense that we're the best and we're the most powerful, which we are, but we don't have any sense of the scale of it, really. That like when the reason other countries are afraid of us is like we were able to invade Afghanistan from 6,000 miles away. Like we can fly a bunch of MRAPs over there, drop them off, keep them fueled, and keep the men fed. That's an amazing military logistical feat that no one else in world history can do. Like China could not invade us. They have like one aircraft carrier. You know what I'm saying? Like they couldn't get people here, and they're they're the other most powerful country in the world. Right. And I don't like it. It's just we're able to be scared by the weirdest boogeyman. That the fact that like Iraq was in 1993 whatever was the third most powerful military in the world, and we beat them in like 3 days.
Yes. Yeah. It's completely superfluous. Jim Gray said, let's compare the amount the government has spent on corporate welfare to individual welfare. Another great point. It's completely true. It seems everybody that opposes welfare seems to be completely okay with corporate welfare. The majority of Walmart employees are on food stamps, so it's essentially the government paying the salary of Walmart's employees for them, which means Walmart is on food stamps. And Walmart, speaking of the military, I don't know if it's still true, but when I was in college, I did a case study on Walmart, and at the time, the number one largest employer of human beings on the planet was the U.S. Department of Defense. Number two was the Chinese Department of Defense, and number three was fucking Walmart. But yet they are on essentially on food stamps, which is ridiculous. I would say this one real quick. Richard J. Sarkey Sr. said, so what's the over-under on beard strokes tonight?
Yeah, we both do that a lot, huh?
Yeah. Well, if you got one, you got to stroke it. I'm going to set it at 100, and you can safely take the over, I'm saying.
I'm legally forbidden from going to my my beard guy, my man. I can't. I got nothing but to grow out the ZZ Top shit. A couple weeks ago, I finally let my wife trim it. She used her dog grooming kit. I was a very good dog. My buddy, what I was going to say is like we're talking about the jobs programs. That's what all this defense spending is corporate welfare. It's just like, and I understand there's a reasoning. I mean, I don't think we need as much national defense as we are, but there is a logic, even though I disagree with it. But trying to keep Lockheed and Boeing, all these companies in business between wars for when in case we need them. But so you could just in theory save a bunch of money by paying them to do nothing and just be at work ready to go and not actually make anything and save them parts at least. But
yeah,
who knows?
Terry G. Lee said apparently they'll try to use their new toys on peaceful protesters. Frank Repepi said they will be sending those F-35s to Portland next. So on the last episode, we talked about the situation in Portland with the paramilitary secret police, the Trump Stapo, they sent up there abducting regular protesters, all that. I made a liberal redneck video about it yesterday. But in between then and now, they've officially announced they're going to deploy that same force to Chicago, right? And then presumably insert liberal American city here after Chicago.
The forces they're using, I mean, this isn't sustainable because they're not that big. They don't have enough to go to every city. Right. And federal law enforcement, I mean, it's too big, but it's not big enough to like put boots in the ground in every American city. It's just not. The F-35 attack in Portland is funny because it's like you need a stealth joint strike fighter to get past Antifa's air defenses, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Which is just like a bunch of crows with bottle rockets strapped to their backs or whatever. Some guys in his rooftop farm. He's got a pigeon coops up there. That's Antifa's air force.
Like I got it. Antifa both does and doesn't exist, right? Like,
right.
there are people who call themselves Antifa. They're no sort of organized group because, hypothetically speaking, let's say you're a person who thinks America is defending rapidly into fascism and has to be resisted violently. Do you put your name on a membership list of such an organization to fight back against it? I think not, right?
Right.
So what it is a series of like Twitter accounts and Discord channels or whatever where they announce places people should go if they want to fist fight Nazis.
And it also, a lot of those Twitter accounts and places on the internet have since been proven conclusively to have been operated by, hardcore conservatives, alt-right, Nazis, whatever, just to, keep people afraid of Antifa. Yeah, right. Antifa, yes, you said it. It both does and does not exist, but it does not at all exist in the form in which they always talk about it, right? That is all complete bullshit.
And the reasons conservatives hate them and want to, paint them as a violent group that should not be listened to or respected is because a lot of what they do is online. What they like Anonymous is like the online arm of Antifa, and mostly what they do is hack subscriber lists and donation lists for like white supremacist groups, and then cross-reference it with people who work for police departments and school districts, and out people who work in public service jobs who are out and out white supremacists. That's why they hate them, is because they're getting a lot of Nazis fired.
So where the Trump Stoppo is concerned, do you think I've seen online commenters hypothesize that part of what they want to happen is an escalation of violence, people like getting more outwardly violent against these paramilitary troops, maybe resulting in somebody getting shot or killed. The idea that would be a good thing for Trump, or that's one of their end games with this, is to have that happen so they can then stoke the fires of fear even more, also justify, like, see, that's why we're there, is because they're crazy and violent, when obviously they're inciting the violence to begin with. Like, how much of that do you think is a factor in what they're doing right now?
That's the insanity of it. It's not working. Like, they've already ran the play. They've already ran the play and it's backfired. So now they're running it harder. It's like a very football coach mentality. It's like, I know we're down 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, but if we just keep running the ball, we'll eventually get back in it. It's like they're doing this, the political version of doing that. And I don't see the public's already made their mind upon this, and they think that police have overreacted. And that's pretty firmly entrenched at this point. So I don't know what would change. Somebody would have to be like organized terroristic violence, like something like what happened with communist factions in Europe in the 80s, where they started blowing up cop cars and stuff. It'd have to be like that,
right?
I think.
All right, so moving on, a little bit of movement in the whole Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. You found out how she actually pronounces her name. What'd you say?
It's Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
It's like one of those weird Irish names that has extra letters in it.
So in the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell debacle, a federal judge has ordered that a number of documents, civil court documents related to Ghislaine Maxwell, will be unsealed next week. They waited 1 week to give Maxwell's lawyers time to file an appeal of the decision, but the judge said that the public's right to see the documents far outweighs Maxwell's right to avoid being embarrassed by their contents, because apparently that was a big part of Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers' arguments to keep the record secret, because they said, quote, "This series of pleading concerns to compel Miss Maxwell to answer intrusive questions about her sex life are extremely personal, confidential, and subject to considerable abuse by the media." So essentially, her lawyers are saying, like, we're worried about the damage this could cause to Ghislaine Maxwell's reputation and personal life if these documents are unsealed. It's like, I got some bad news for y'all, buddy. And I know lawyers have to argue something, but like this one in particular is just so ridiculous to me. Like, yeah, you think this is going to make her look bad publicly?
Yeah.
Oh,
buddy,
wow.
have you Googled your client? There's way worse stuff out there about her.
Right.
I mean, this whole thing's both evil and a farce, right?
Right.
I mean, the government's been fighting this role. It's gonna be really embarrassing for the Department of Justice, because I don't know if people remember the origins of this, but like the local authorities in West Palm Beach, I think, had Epstein dead to rights for assaulting 27 girls, I think. And the federal government swooped in, the U.S. attorney swooped in, filed a superseding indictment of much lesser charges and gave him 1 year in prison. Then he got out to protect whoever. That's the same. Trump made that guy his labor secretary, that U.S. attorney.
Yeah,
so,
Trump talked about this thing with Maxwell. Or he talked about Ghislaine Maxwell specifically recently, and he literally said, "I just wish her well, frankly." And said that he's met her numerous times over the years, and he wishes her well. And that a remark that was roundly criticized by a number of people, including Mooch, Anthony Scaramucci, who you may remember from his brief stint as the White House communications director a few years ago. And Mooch tweeted, "She has the goods on him. He is signaling, please don't talk." I don't know how much you could read into almost anything that Trump says, but just, again, as any kind of politician, I don't know how you don't arrive at a more reasonable response to a question about this, like, the world's most famous pedophile supervillain who's still alive and in the public eye, how you don't come up with a better response to her situation than, "Yeah, I wish her well." Like, it's not hard to not say that.
Yeah, it doesn't even connect to the subject matter anyway. It'd be like, "How do you feel about John Wayne Gacy?" It'd be like, "Aloha."
Right. Well,
the
White House spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany told Fox News that she clarified and said, "No, what the president was noting is that the last person who was charged in this case ended up dead in a jail cell, and he doesn't want that to happen to Maxwell because he wants justice to be served in court." And I'm sure that is, in fact, exactly what he meant by that.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, I don't think people. I don't know about the "don't talk" thing. Like, it's such a. I feel like he'd have a better way to get a message to her. I mean, he could just have his lawyer call her lawyer. I don't think he needs to go into
right.
I mean, the smart move for somebody who wanted to get away with it would go in the press room and blast her, but through back channels, tell her, "Don't worry about it. I got you."
Yep. So moving on here to the GOP's absolute favorite woman in America, Her Royal Highness Miss AOC. She had a little run-in with GOP opposition this week when Representative Ted Yoho, a Republican from Florida, had an altercation with AOC on the steps of the Capitol building because she had said, well, Mark, explain this, please. You
All right, so
earlier.
Like so many things in our country, so much of our discussion is dominated by whatever weird meme is on the right media that day. So crime rates are up in the last month in New York. Now, 1 month is not a trend. No one knows whether it's because of the arrest they make as the protest, or whether more other crimes are happening because of the protest, or whether police are doing with that Ferguson effect thing, they kind of go on strike and don't do their jobs to throw a fit. But anyway, people are talking about how crime's up in New York. So AOC made the point that, well, also there's a terrible recession going on, and crime always goes up when people need food to eat. Basically. Right. And Ted Yoho responded to this by, when he passed her in the halls of Congress, arguing with her about it briefly, and then called her a fucking bitch.
Yes.
So that became yesterday's big flap, because we don't talk about actual issues in this country. We talk about interpersonal soap opera type, reality show stuff. And not because anything she did, it's not her fault. It's just that's what reporters wanted to talk about yesterday. So Yoho eventually went on the floor of Congress and did that as a father of daughters thing about apologizing to the American people for his language. Didn't really apologize to her. So she gave a big speech today where she basically said, "I don't care about your apology, but here's why it's wrong. What you did was wrong, and so it's a bad example, and we're Congress people, and we should behave better, and the women are treated like shit." She phrased it much more eloquently than I could, but it's just like, I don't understand. This is a weird thing where, like, Do you remember like 2 years ago, whenever it was, when Roseanne's life got in big trouble for being obsessed with Valerie Jarrett or whatever?
Yeah.
She made a joke about Valerie Jarrett looking like she compared her to a Planet of the Apes character.
Yeah.
Valerie, I had to look up who Valerie Jarrett was, but Valerie Jarrett is very popular in right-wing discourse as a left-wing person. She was worked in Obama's White House because she's the boogeyman on Iran policies. They're obsessed with her. And Roseanne, being a Jewish person, is a big Zionist. So that connects that. But like, if you turn on like Fox News, they're talking about AOC like 12 hours a day. A buddy of mine who was conservative would randomly text me like twice a week stuff AOC said that he thought was stupid.
Right.
The most junior person in Congress. She's the youngest one of the youngest people. She just got elected one term. She has no actual power except other than to roast Pelosi on social media. That's it. It's like weird. She puts them on tilt so easily, where this guy who's been in Congress a long time is doing something he knows would get him in trouble.
Yeah.
And just can't resist it.
Right. Okay. Well, a couple things. Circling back just a little bit, his whole apology as as a father of daughters, here's why you shouldn't do, like, fuck all that. Like, I don't know how old his daughters are, but he's been a father of daughters for a long time, and still opted to call her a fucking bitch in public. So obviously that's bullshit, which everybody already knows. But also it goes back to that thing I was saying earlier about these guys and like the alligator sausage and what Trump said about Maxwell and all this. I don't understand how you don't, even if you are that asshole, and they all are, I don't understand how you don't know any better than to not fucking do that in public. And it's what you said. They just lose control over her. She gets them so insanely riled up and heated that like they just lose control of themselves. And I think it's a combination of things with her, all of which are, pretty obvious. She's young. She's a woman. She's a person of color. She's outspoken. All those things. They're not into any of those things. Like they're upset by any one of those things. You combine all those into one person, it really gets them going. But also, and I know this is going to sound probably, but like sincerely, I think also they're like afraid of her because I think they see her as like a representative of, maybe what's coming. Because I remember when she was running for office, and it went viral. It was a pretty famous thing at the time. On Fox News, they had this graphic that outlined all of AOC's policies, and the point of it on Fox News and to Fox News's audience was like, look how much of an insane socialist lunatic this girl is. And every single bullet point on that list was something that I was like, yeah, it's a great idea, and that's absolutely what we should do. Like, it was completely reasonable if you're any kind of progressive, but they're terrified of her, I think, because I think they're worried that she, represents the possible future. They're all dying off, and like, this is what's coming, is this. And I think it freaks them out. I think she scares them.
I mean, it's just not worth living in a country where everyone can get medicine, Trey. It's really just the worst possible world to live in. I mean, she's a very effective communicator for left-wing politics in a way that like Bernie is, but his time's probably past.
Right.
And so she's good at she doesn't care about money, so she can't be bought. So that makes the Democratic establishment mad at her, and she doesn't care what guys like Ted Yoho think of her. So it's like,
right. And a lot of people in the comments are saying, they're afraid of her. You can't be, you would not be this vocal about AOC if you weren't afraid of her. Lynn Boyd Birchfield said he didn't apologize, and that you're right. We didn't mean to imply that he did apologize. He gave a like bullshit, like kind of half-ass, not even an attempt at apology, but like doing something. But you're right, he didn't apologize. And again, he said was bullshit anyway. So Trust me.
Yeah, I mean,
we're with you.
AOC's whole thing was like, I'm not waiting for your apology. I don't care. I don't need it. So yeah, I'm aware they didn't apologize. I'm not sure how to describe what he did. Is like filibustering, basically. It's that that thing. I'm well acquainted with how to do as a dude, where you say, "I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings," kind of thing.
Right.
With not from actual.
Yes,
behavior.
right. No, it's not. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. It's usually I'm sorry if you got your feelings hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's your mistake.
Because it's right. It's your thing. And Louis, I think, or some comic had a bit about that. But yes, it's right. The implication is that it's your problem. It's unfortunate that you allowed your feelings to be hurt, but
I'm sorry for you that your brain's so bad and weak that it got its feelings hurt by the very correct thing I said. That's the implication.
Stacy Bryant commented, "It's nothing new that middle-aged white men cannot take an attractive young woman who also has brains and isn't afraid to use them at point-blank range on Twitter in front of everybody."
There's
Constance Ferrari said, "You left out that she's gorgeous. I don't know how it matters really, but there's an element of jealousy if you're talking about conservative female news people, but like conservative female like public figures."
She is objectively pretty, and that obviously factors into the attention she gets into a significant degree. I mean, Fox News' whole business model is built around they have glass tables so you can see their anchors' legs and stuff. So they put her on TV because they can both make your grandpa both horny and angry, and that's sort of like their target. But like, there's the thing, when she put out the Green New Deal, she made a joke, like she tweeted it out, was like, it was about trains and fuel emission standards and green jobs and all that stuff, and then like she was like, it's going to take us a bit longer to get rid of airplanes and cows, LOL. And first step of that was they told their base that she's really going to try to ban planes and cows. But then they actually started. They actually started seeming to believe it. Like they really think she's going to go around and euthanize the cows and not let anybody get on an airplane. I don't. It's very.
They took our cows. You can take my cows when you pry them from my cold dead fingers. God damn it.
Yeah, I'll be sitting in my yard guarding my cow with my AR-15 all night, every night.
They're gonna take our cows. That's such a cartoonishly stupid thing for them to have gotten scared about, but also very much in line. All right, one more quick thing, and then open it up to the commenters, see what they've got for us tonight. World of sports are back in America, and obviously NASCAR and versions of golf have been around for a little bit, but the NBA just fired back up. Also, the MLB recently. The NFL is still digging its head in the sand, acting like, it'll be fine, even though they don't seem to have any actual plan for how it's going to be fine. So I want to ask you just generally how you're feeling about all these separate attempts to open back up during the pandemic by the American sports organizations, Mark. But before you do, though, just because I enjoyed this, I want to show everybody one factor of the MLB's plan, what they got. This is really exciting. Cutting edge technology they've got here. You guys are going to love this. Dancing, fired up.
Oh yeah.
Even the wave, Mark.
We are one.
God, how far technology has come. We've got the wave, got virtual fans doing the wave. Like,
I know it's like those are like 2006 computer game characters.
No, that's the thing is like every child in America who has a video game console has had this technology on every standard sports video game for like 15 years. But Fox Sports is like, look at this. You guys aren't going to believe this. Look at that. They do the wave. And it's like, it's I
It's
don't
one of
know
those
what
things
they're
where it's
going
like
for.
trying to make someone feel more normal. Someone makes is like way more creepy. It's like just
Right.
the stands be empty. We all know there's a pandemic. We all know those aren't real people. What it's like. Plus, it's creep. It's that thing where it's like kind of close to reality, but a little far. They made fun of this in 30 Rock, but kind of Polar Express, that style of animation, was like really close to being human, but also really far off because the eyes are dead. And it's
Right. The uncanny valley or whatever.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the prospects of these different sports leagues actually getting through their season during COVID-19?
I think the NBA bubble is actually going to work. I mean, working like I don't think they're going to have some massive outbreak where they're going to have to like shut down because they're doing what the government should have done.
Right.
This Disneyland in Orlando and New Zealand. Everybody's getting tested daily, and they're quick with contact tracing and with test results, and they're all young, tip-top athletes. They're typically not the people that are severely affected by COVID in the first place. So I know what Major League Baseball is doing. They had like a big player test positive today, and he's out for a couple of weeks now. And he's not symptomatic, but their testing protocol takes 2 days to get results. So he was around his team for 2 days before they knew he'd gotten it. They tested on Tuesday, and results came back Thursday. That's not fast enough to stop it from spreading. So, but of course, that's not a contact sport, really. So, right. So at least an outbreak should be contained within teams, I would assume. I don't know, but they're still traveling. That's the thing, is like they're playing the actual home stadiums.
Right. And then there's football, which is either going to fall apart immediately due to the pandemic or like lie somehow and act like they just don't have it.
And a lot of those guys have underlying health conditions because they have to be artificially heavy to play their position. So you got a bunch of offensive linemen with sleep apnea and heart problems who could actually have serious complications from COVID. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So what do y'all got for us? Also, as a reminder, me and the two well-read guys, Corey and Drew, are doing a live online comedy show where you can watch us on your computer with your pants off or whatever. You do whatever you want. And if you're into that, and if you're not, it's fine. You don't have to tell me how not into it you are. If you're not into it, that's just okay. I'm going to pin a comment with links where you can get the tickets for that. Anyway, so let's see what we got going over here. Let's see. I don't know if you know about this, Mark, because I'm not sure if I do. Acewood says, looks like the Ohio House Speaker had some situation with bribery and money laundering up to $60 million. But, poor people are the problem in this country. Yeah,
they what they did was this is the rough beats the story. And if I get some details wrong, just go read the news for yourself. But basically, Speaker of the House, before he was Speaker of the House, he tried to push through $1 billion subsidy for a nuclear power plant. It didn't go. So what they did was they put $60 million in a super PAC for him to spend and get himself elected, get him elected speaker. So then they get pushed the bill through. A voter ballot initiative overturned it, and then they tried to anyway. They were pushing too hard for it to get their to make sure they get to keep their $60 million. So they ended up getting everybody going to jail.
That's fun.
Yeah.
We got some funny baseball comments over here. Stacy Lynn said, because you said you were talking about baseball and you're like, look, these are young tip-top athletes. They're not generally the most at-risk group. Stacy,
I meant NBA players.
Okay. I will back Stacy Lynn up here because I remember as you were saying it, I thought it was during the baseball part. So Stacy Lynn commented, Kirby Puckett was an amazing baseball player, not a tip-top athlete.
Yeah, you're right, Stacey. John Kruk would definitely have died of COVID. Right. I would never. Not saying he wouldn't.
Mark Bender commented, "Did you notice that Dr. Fauci even social distanced the baseball he threw on the first pitch?" Hashtag science. Yeah, if y'all didn't see it, it was pretty rough. He threw out the first pitch at a Nationals game, and he hooked it a little bit. Wasn't close, but as you pointed out, we were texting about it earlier. You said, it's a 79-year-old man. We can go easy on him. It's still funny though.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 79-year-old nerd, so he probably would have thrown that way when he was 22.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop. If anybody hasn't seen it, I'm gonna drop a link to the video in the doc tray.
All right. Yeah. Okay. David Strolls commented, Obama didn't brag half as much about winning a Nobel Peace Prize as Trump has about passing that dementia test, that's accurate.
Obama hated winning that Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't want it because he got it. He got it just for not being Bush. It was like his first year in office.
So Stacey Atwell said, thanks for talking about Portland. It's crazy here. Wondering what you think might happen if these stormtroopers head to other cities. We covered that a little bit earlier, but then she said, also, who are they hiring? Who's taking this job? Are these failed police recruits? And my understanding of it is, I think at least so far, they're existing federal agents from a select number of agents. It's Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Marshals, and the Border Patrol is the last I saw. So
yeah.
Like you were saying, like they're not, it's not really that they don't have that many of them readily available. So if they did want to roll them out to a bunch of other cities, they would have to do some kind of recruitment initiative or bring in law enforcement from elsewhere or something, which I mean, they could do, but as of now, that's the deal.
There aren't that many. There were an article about the recruitment policies, and it was pretty. I mean, it's funny in that way that things are funny now, where they're just so ridiculous and sad and dark. But the so Border Patrol, I don't know if you remember, under Bush surged a lot. They like tripled their funding and their staffing, and they didn't have any actual standards. So when they actually implemented them, when they started doing stuff like lie detector tests, they started weeding out like 70% of the applicants because they had severe criminal records for stuff like human trafficking and drug smuggling. They found somebody who'd actually ransomed, kidnapped people in like Papua New Guinea or something. So like those people were getting through before they started. So like, you're to correctly observe they didn't have the highest hiring standards at highest hiring standards at Customs and Border Patrol.
So I've a few comments ago, and I've lost it now, as I'm wont to do when we get to this part. A commenter named Claiborne something, I can't remember the last name, I'm sorry, said, who is this other really smart guy? That's Smart Mark, Claiborne. It's this Smart Mark Agee. He doesn't like to be called that, but it's true. Now, Mark Agee.
I didn't know you guys called me that. Apparently, I'm in the well-read extended universe in their podcast but this is very relative because it's like I know more facts than Corey.
Right, the buttercream dream. So, Mark is a former journalist and current comedy writer and buddy of mine. So yeah, that's him.
Before I forget, I wanted to. We were talking about military spending. A buddy of mine from high school used to be in the Air Force. And he was stationed in Mountain Home, Idaho. And I don't know if people know this about how budgets work, but if you don't spend all your money, you get less the next year, right? So this military base had a golf course. So at the end of the year, they had a bunch of money left over. So what they did was they built a second golf course because they didn't have anything else to do with their money. So I'm imagining by now, this was like 20 years ago. So by now, half of Idaho is probably golf courses. For the Air Force.
Yeah, no, that, as I mentioned on the last episode, my old day job was working for the federal government, and that's a thing across the entire federal government. I'm sure most governmental operations, like you said, if you don't spend the budget you were allocated, that means next year your budget's going to be lower. So they never allow that to happen. Where I worked, the facilities budget, they would spend everything that was left, painting or re-blacktopping the parking lot, which had just been done the very prior year to that and shit like that, So yeah, that's how you end up with all these bloated governmental budgets. It's a goddamn shame, but it is how it works. All right, I'm gonna ask this question. Michelle Minich Spencer commented, yes, please, your thoughts on the Lincoln Project.
We talked about this before we started taping because Trey asked me. I had insinuated that I'm not a fan, and I'll just say this: as individual, let's talk about what they're doing versus who they are for a second. Let's talk about who they are for a second. First of all, Kellyanne Conway's husband, George Conway. I know he tweets a bunch of anti-Trump stuff, but I don't know how a husband and wife could actually disagree that much and still stay married, even though I know they're Catholic. And whatever their daughter was doing on Twitter seems like another part of this game. But if you have a brain that works, it was always apparent that Trump was going to be bad for your brand, right? So it seems like a fairly straightforward thing for political operatives to be like, okay, you have to work for Trump in the White House. I'm going to be anti-Trump, so I'm still viable in politics after your career crashes and burns. Because I know people know about Kellyanne's career, but it wasn't going well before Trump.
Right.
That's why he reached out to hire her after everything else fell apart. She was like the last table scrap. The last campaign she had run, I think, was the guy who, I think it was Missouri Senate, who lost a landslide after saying that women have a whole way to shut that thing down, talking about rape pregnancies.
Right. Yeah.
So that was her legacy before Trump. So anyway, that's George Conway. And then you got Rick Wilson, who would tweet jokes about Trayvon getting killed. You got their videographer, just a video ad guy, just had to resign because people dug up old tweets where he was seemed pretty horny for the idea of wishing he was the guy who killed Michael Brown instead of the Darren what's his name, who did it in Ferguson. So their politics are not mine, let's put it that way. Well, what they're doing, sorry.
Is it fair to say that you just very much get the impression that the people behind the Lincoln Project, whatever they're doing with the Lincoln Project, you think that the actual people behind it are at least a little bit full of shit? That's what you're saying?
At least a little bit. And I guess I'll offer in their defense, even though I don't want to, that they've certainly cost themselves and sacrificed a ton of money in the last few years by being never Trump people. Mm-hmm. Except for George Conway, he's still getting paid on both, getting paid coming and going. And it's not a bad lane to be in, to be like, we're the people who can make really aggressive, mean attack ads from Trump at Trump from the right. If people want to give them money to do it, it's your money, I guess. But my thing is, like, their ads aren't going to convince anybody of anything. They're good at trolling Trump. They've made him misdirect some ad spending in DC just to Trump running ads in DC is politically. He's not going to win DC. So
no, it's like 90% Democrat or something like that.
Yeah.
So well, okay, but that is like I didn't know. We were talking about this off mic, and you told me a lot of shit that I didn't know it already. I knew that George Conway is Kellyanne's husband. I didn't know like the background of these people that run it. And I'm not like a huge Lincoln Project fan, but I had previously just sort of appreciated the lane that they have, like you said, the sort of space that they fill. I'm personally glad that it's a space that's being filled. And I agree, you're not really changing many people's minds with ads like that. I think pretty much any ads like that are not going to change many people's minds. But if it is resulting in even something like Trump misdirecting some campaign spending into a wasteful avenue, then that's still cool with me. Obviously, all that shit you said about what the things they have said in the past and stuff, some of that's pretty vile, and I don't like the sound of it. But as far as the face of the organization and what they seem to be attempting to do, I'm generally on board with.
I would just urge you guys not to give them any money, because what they're doing is paying themselves to make these little ads that get a bunch of views on Twitter, and if they can trick Trump into tweeting about them, then get mainstream as like CNN airplay because they have to cover Trump's tweets. But other than that, I don't know. It's not really doing anything.
Way Wood Elf commented, "The Lincoln Project is dangerous. Right now they look good, but they're already campaigning for 2024. Take this seriously." So
yeah, I mean, next year, the money you give them this year will next year be running ads about how Pelosi's spending too much on social programs. So yeah, give your dollars elsewhere.
Right. Let's see here. Stacey Lynn back again said, "We can boost Biden while they cream Trump. I approve." And a lot of other people have had like similar thoughts and kind of what I was saying. Like if they are at all an effective tool to oust Trump, then, okay. But yeah, sure. It doesn't mean we got to just lionize them and,
Yeah. I mean, the Soviet Union was a big help taking down Nazi Germany, but.
Right. Yeah. Seems like a lot of people are, I feel similarly to you, Mark, as far as Lincoln Project is concerned. AJ Nestor said, "Don't donate to the Lincoln Project. If Biden wins, they're going to turn their guns on us immediately." It's just a group of Republicans making Trump attack ads. That was from Stephen Lewis. So, yeah.
They actually, the only thing I'll say that might actually not be their money-making move, because like the real move here is like, because they've already established their brand as the anti-Trumpist wing of conservatives. So like they might just turn their ire on like Rubio next, and then
Right.
Cruz, and then like that might be their. It's not a bad lane to be in because they're going to. I mean, they've already made like $2 million off this in the last couple months. Like they're going to. It's a good grift. Why let go of it? You know?
Right. All righty. Well, we are out of time. That's it for this edition of Evening Skews. I'm Trey Crowder. That's Smart Mark there. Smart Mark AG. Getting a lot of love in the comments. And thank y'all for watching, and we'll see you next Tuesday. See you. Bye.
Bye, guys.